Well, we're very fortunate to have the commissioner of the Big East Conference with us today, Val Ackerman. Val, welcome. We appreciate you taking some time to visit with us, and certainly our fans are extremely excited about coming home to the Big East. So thank you very much.
Great day. Great to see you. And
So Val,
looking forward to all this. Very
it's
exciting.
yeah, it's been 7 years since you became the commissioner, a little over 7 years since you became the commissioner of the Big East, which obviously our fans are very much aware of that because your ascension to the commissioner's job, aligned with the disruption in our conference situation. And while we've been away and our fans are certainly familiar with the conference, I think it'd be great if you kind of gave our fans some insight as to what's happened over the past 7 years. And certainly we've all watched from afar, and certainly our fans are very close to it. But it'd be great to hear from your perspective how it's been the last 7 years, how you approach reestablishing the Big East and its brand. And certainly you've done an amazing job.
Well, thanks for that, Dave. I appreciate that. It has been a really extraordinary journey, I think, for our group of schools, and now you're one, which is so amazing. Over the last 7 years, I have to say I was not privy to the events that led to the breakup of the old league. I was an observer at that time. I was actually teaching a sports management class at Columbia University, and we were using the breakup of the old Big East as a case study on leadership and management crisis management, I guess. So I was an observer to that. And then when all the machinations happened that led to the current configuration, I was approached to bring to life what the Big East had become. And so I'll just say it was kind of a strenuous couple of years, recreating all of the infrastructure that was left behind with what became the American that you all were part of. I had to hire staff, get an office. We at the time I started had already struck the deal with Fox Sports, and that has been one of the most important partnerships that we've had, and very much a factor, I think, in the success of the league, particularly in basketball over the last 7 years. As I know your fans know, we were able to hold on to Madison Square Garden as the venue for the men's tournament, and while we weren't sure early on whether that event would be like it was because of the incredible fan support from schools like yours, it really delivered. Just to be there, it's a great venue, as you know, and you've played there so many times. The Huskies have played there so many times, men and women. And so to sort of have that and to build on the successes and all the history, and then bring in the great fans that we've got now in our newer schools. And I would say, just more than anything, I'm looking forward to the coming together of your fans and these great basketball supporters that we have all around the conference. So I would just say those first couple of years were kind of nutty, just tireless, just trying to, build it back up again. But since then, it's been really exciting to see how this group has gelled. Basketball has held up, as you all know, but we're good in other things. I mean, Georgetown right now is the defending national champion in men's soccer. We're excited about what Coach Stevens is going to bring us in field hockey. We've had success in running sports. We've got some great volleyball in the Midwest. We've got great lacrosse in the Big East, led in part by Denver, which is an affiliate on the men's side, now the women's side. So it's been exciting to see our 22 sports do well. And then, of course, all the values of the league in terms of our academic successes, and then kind of what we do off the field, off the court, just in terms of service activities and the like. Esports is something we're getting ourselves into. There's just a lot going on, Dave. And so I'm really excited. I think you all will benefit from that. And in turn, I think we will benefit from everything that you and your coaches and your student athletes and your incredible supporters are going to bring to our great league.
Val, you mentioned Fox. And so Fox is a partner that UConn has not necessarily had a partnership relationship with. Certainly our fans, we're all familiar with Fox and Fox Sports, but it'd be great to provide our fans some insight as to what we should expect from Fox, how they cover especially the sport of basketball in our league, and the partnership and how that's been the last 7 years.
Well, it's very interesting, Dave. I mean, history repeated itself with the lining up of Fox Sports and the new Big East, just like ESPN lined up with the old Big East. It was incredible, really incredibly coincidental. So just for the history buffs here, at the time that the new Big East was being formed, Fox was in the process of launching a new national sports cable network that was to be Fox Sports 1. They had the Speed channel, and they were effectively repurposing it. And so they were looking very much for programming. And so that's what the new Big East represented to Fox Sports, particularly in the sport of basketball. And so back in 2013, a deal was struck, a 12-year deal was struck with Fox Sports and the new conference that provided, importantly for basketball, comprehensive coverage across Fox networks. So every men's basketball game that we've had since 2013 has been on Fox Air, principally Fox Sports 1. But every year we get about 18 or 20 games on the big Fox network, which of course delivers a major audience. We have some games on Fox Sports 2. And up until recently, we've been on Fox regional channels as well. So it's been very comprehensive coverage. We don't have the same amount of coverage on the women's side, but that'll be addressed a bit this year with the sublicense that Fox has struck with SNY, which we know is a longtime home of UConn women's basketball. So that, I think, would be familiar to your fans and exciting news as well. And then we also have, again, through the Fox relationship, they have a sublicense with CBS Sports. So we get a handful of games as well on the CBS Sports Network as well as Big CBS. So we've got, I would say, really fabulous TV in the new Big East. It's not just game programming. They do shoulder programming and features as well. And their announced teams, led by Gus Johnson and Bill Raftery, Donnie Marshall, former Husky, Jim Johnson and others, have been so enthusiastic and such great storytellers about the league and our athletes and our programs. So I think hopefully your fans will quickly adjust to this sort of new outlet here. And I would just say, as a business matter, they've been fantastic partners, have really been in lockstep with us from day one. They come to our annual meeting. They're at the bar with us, just sort of being good friends. I'll just add as well, we have a digital network, Dave, that you're aware of, the Big East Digital Network, which provides additional coverage of mostly Olympic sports and women's basketball. And that was at one point on Fox's mobile app. We're in the process now of switching homes for our digital network. The disruption by COVID has sort of tripped us up a little bit, but we'll have some news at some point as well on where our fans who are watching our streams can easily find the Big East as well. So it's been great coverage. And again, I think, these relationships will be easy, hopefully, for your fans to adjust to.
Yeah, no, we're looking forward to getting to know all the folks at Fox that make it happen, and their support of the league has been tremendous. And I think we're excited about the fact that while we appreciated the relationship that we've had in the past, I think the Big East is a significant priority for Fox, and that's going to play out in a lot of different ways that I think our fans are going to appreciate, because I think they're going to know a lot earlier where we're going to be and where they can find us and what the schedule looks like. So we're excited about that. So obviously, I'm sure you've been asked many times, Val. I certainly have. Don't really get into these types of conversations as it relates to how all this came about relative to UConn coming home. But I think more importantly, if you could talk about some of what was discussed relative to, why bring UConn back? What does UConn bring to the league? And how will ultimately UConn coming back play into continuing to strengthen the Big East, and also certainly not necessarily the reason why you'd bring us back, but talk about how bringing in an 11th team fits in with creating a 20-game league schedule, which I think obviously there's other leagues that have gone to that, and how that will play into the future of the league.
Sure, Dave. Well, first I want to thank you because it was a year ago plus that we were talking. Not many people, I think, knew that, but we were talking and bringing together, our thoughts about how to make what happened on July 1st possible. The reentry of your great school back to a very proud conference where UConn was a charter member. Spent, I think the number was 33 or 4 years of its existence. So, yeah, you're right. That's a long story, how that came to be. But I will say for your fans here, it is a fact that the Big East, the new Big East with 10 schools, was working out well. I mean, there were really advantages, I think, for our schools because they're basketball focused. We do have 3 other schools besides UConn that play football. They play at the FCS level. But, I would describe the new Big East as truly basketball centric. Everybody's all in. And, I think that's been sort of borne out by the successes we've had in the men's tournament, especially, and NCAA tournament. Of course, Villanova winning 2 national championships has been incredible. So, so 10 was a good number, but there was one school. There's just one school out there who, was sort of the choice if we had to go to 11, and it was UConn. And for all the reasons that you'd expect. I mean, again, being a charter member, the history, the geography made so much sense, particularly for our Eastern Seaboard schools. I mean, I can already see the rivalries reviving with Providence and St. John's and, of course, Villanova and Georgetown. And I see new rivalries on the horizon, particularly after your MTE game last year with Xavier. I heard that was wild. I watched it. It was really something. So, the rivalries, old and new, and of course, importantly, just everything that you're bringing in terms of basketball and so many other sports where you've had great success. So it just seemed to make sense. And it just seemed like it could be an important part of our future. So our presidents, had many discussions about it, a lot of considerations, as you were aware, but unanimous decision at the end of the day. And then, we just needed some lead time to kind of, make it possible. I would say I'm sorry that the entry is sort of happening under such really extraordinary circumstances that we find ourselves with the virus and all the uncertainties around that. But but this was a long view move. I think safe to say for you,
absolutely,
in the school, and certainly for us. So while we may have a little bit of a rough ride here in the coming months, as it relates to college athletics and what's going to happen on our campuses, I mean, I'm totally convinced that that the future here is going to be really exceptionally bright for all of us, and just know you all are going to bring so much, really, in all the things that you do with your student athletes and with your fans, and of course with all of the great programs that your coaches and you are a part of. So we're looking forward to it. It's gonna be great.
I would. You thanked me. I would thank you and the rest of the league for giving us the opportunity on behalf of the university as well as our fan base, because people could not be more excited. It's the most energy that I've felt since I've been around the program, since I've been here. So it speaks to the fact, the relationship and the fit that we have in the Big East, and it truly is an opportunity for us to come home. So thank you. Now I'll bring this up. I have not experienced this myself. You certainly have now since becoming the commissioner, but everyone talks to me about the Big East tournament and how unbelievable the Big East tournament and how amazing it is. Everyone's got stories about it. So I'm really looking forward to experiencing that firsthand. Hopefully we'll have a Big East tournament this coming year. More to come on that down the road. But just talk to us about, you mentioned, I would guess that most of our fans have not been going to the Big East tournament here over the past 7 years. But has anything changed? Is it still the same? How are things going to look for our fans that are going to be returning to the Garden?
Well, it's the Big East tournament. Dave, I would think for the fans who've been there before, the building's been spiffed up a little bit because of a major renovation that the Garden did some years back. So they may see some sort of structural changes there. But in terms of, what that building is for anybody who's a basketball fan, the energy, the lighting, the way they sort of darken upstairs. It's almost like a Broadway show with the spotlight on the court. That freight elevator that we're all used to, entering when you go in that 8th Avenue entrance on the 33rd Street side. Sort of the back alleys of the building are all pretty much the same, the bones of the place. And it really is. I mean, I've been associated with the sport of basketball, as you know, for many, many years. I've been to a lot of basketball arenas in the U.S. and around the world, and there's no place like Madison Square Garden for me. Just none. Been to so many games there, and it feels like home. And so I would just say to your fans, it's been a great event without you, and it's going to be a better event with you. As we look ahead to next year and beyond. We've had great partnership with Joel Fisher, who I know you know, who's the head of the building, EVP for Marquee Sports at Madison Square Garden. We've got a great working relationship there. What was interesting was to see how we would attract fans from our newer schools. And I remember the first year, 2014, our first tournament, the fans from Creighton were just kind of coming out of the woodwork, in part because they had a great year, National Player of the Year that year, and Doug McDermott, whose dad, Greg, coaches the team. So here we were with thousands of fans from Omaha. Of course, our Eastern Seaboard teams always travel well, whether it's Providence or Georgetown and everybody in between. So the event really, I think, has, continued on in a really magical kind of way. We've had great games there. The fan support is really, I think, notable. So I think for all of us, it's something we're really looking forward to. Obviously, we were very disrupted this past year. It was a very dark day for everybody in sports, certainly for people associated with the Big East. But, it's the Garden. So, welcome back. And we hope many of your fans will take advantage. And, tickets, whatever, we'll let you know when tickets are available.
Yeah,
tickets are on sale at some point.
It will be a hot commodity. Yeah, and just to remind our fans, I think it was within the last couple of years, you guys signed an extension. The league signed an extension with Madison Square Garden to keep the Big East tournament there for a long time.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we assume when the new Big East formed, the new Big East assumed the contract to play there. It didn't go on forever. And there were actually some provisions in there that we didn't like, involving the possibility of an early termination. But the good news is we were able to work out with Joel Fisher an arrangement that keeps us there for many years to come, in a rock solid way on the dates that we're used to playing there. It mattered more than anything because it really is such an incredible relationship. I think 38 years and going strong now that we've been in that single site more than any other conference in any one building. So good news for our fans, certainly good news for our programs. I think good news for college basketball because it's an event unlike any other.
It is. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. You've had the fortunate opportunity to serve in what I think is a defining moment in college athletics, on the committee with the NCAA with name, image, and likeness. And I'm not sure how you feel about that opportunity. Obviously, it's been a lot of time and effort on your part because this is obviously a really, really significant issue within college athletics and the NCAA, and is getting national attention from all walks of life. So just not to get into the weeds on this item or debate NIL, but just talk a little bit about the process and maybe what we can expect over the next year as we vet out some of the recommendations from the committee.
Yeah, sure, Dave. So as people who follow college sports know, athletes who come to our programs receive many benefits. They receive scholarships, cost of attendance, a whole host of other benefits, not to mention the academic experience of being at some great schools. Up until now, one thing that athletes have not been afforded is the opportunity to commercialize their images. in a way that would allow them to earn extra money outside of that scholarship, cost of attendance, permissible benefit structure. It's been the source of just a lot of debate, discussion, public and internal, over many years. And a year ago, in part because of activities that were being conducted at state levels, most notably California, which had whose legislature had decided that, notwithstanding NCAA rules prohibiting NIL, name, image, and likeness, it was going to allow it for schools in that state. The NCAA put together a national working group to examine the rules and recommend potential changes. So I was appointed co-chair of that working group. Gene Smith, who I know you know well, athletics director at Ohio State, was the other co-chair. We had 20 people on the group, and the group represented all three divisions of the NCAA, which is more than 1,100 schools. So we set about the task of looking at the rules and trying to decide whether they could be changed, and if so, how. So fast forward a year, after a long inquiry that involved a couple of different reports to the Board of Governors to oversee the NCAA, we recommended in April that these rules be changed, and we created a framework for that to happen. And you're right, it would probably take a longer, a few minutes than our interview here to explain that in detail. But if your viewers are interested, they can go to the NCAA website and find the report. It was filed on April 28th. But the punchline is the expectation is that student athletes will be able to begin to use their names, image, and likenesses in a way that can bring them some extra income from third parties. They could do that either through businesses they start, or activities like books they write, or songs they compose, or camps and clinics that they run. Want to use their name to promote those. They could do it in that fashion, or they could, under the model that we've crafted, use their names, images, and likenesses in connections with the endorsements of third-party products and services. That's a biggie. It's never been done before. It does come with, it will come up with some regulation because of concerns that we have about how that will play out in recruiting, and concerns our schools have about salaries, and not wanting us to get into a pay for play sort of environment. Of course, we want this to be kind of done in a fair way for schools. So work is being undertaken right now to fill out the details of this framework. And the expectation is that we'll have something, groups that are now involved in this, to be voted on in January by the NCAA members, and then be brought into effect essentially this time next year, in anticipation of the 21-22 academic year. So there's a bit of a runway left up on this, Dave. We expect that many will be involved in crafting these rules. That will cover things like disclosure, and how this syncs up with school sponsors, and how to manage relationships that athletes may have as they come into our colleges, because some of them may be social influencer stars in high school. So there's a whole host of issues here that your head starts to spin a little bit as you get in the weeds. But this is our commitment to kind of work through that. And I think, just as a punchline, I think it is a groundbreaking set of opportunities for our student athletes. And I think we thought it was time, especially with social media opportunities now exploding. And the sense we had was that athletes should, to the greatest extent possible, be able to access opportunities that other students now have more or less freely. So that's the plan. And again, I think it'll be good news for our athletes, and certainly part of the evolution of benefits that we've seen happen. And you've been part of this over the last 6 or 8 years, I think is another positive step forward.
Yeah, it's definitely a groundbreaking change for the NCAA and student athletes. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the process evolves and the rules become more clear. But there was a conversation. We did a roadshow interview like this with Gino and Dan, and Gino mentioned, or there was a question about Paige Buckers, who's an incoming freshman on our women's team, who's got over 500,000 Instagram followers, and so these individuals out there can influence people, and a lot of people are being paid a lot of money for that opportunity to align themselves with certain products. So it it's very interesting times, and I'm supportive. Certainly want to protect the integrity of competition that we have, and not have this turn into just another opportunity to try to provide benefits to recruit kids to certain places. But hopefully, we'll be able to work through that and let the economic factors play out as they do in all aspects of our society. Finally, and maybe possibly as challenging, maybe more challenging than dealing with name, image, and likeness is the pandemic and COVID-19 and how that's impacted, our conference, our membership, as well as planning for the future. And nothing specific here. And obviously, I know that there's going to be a lot of conversations here over the next several weeks as it relates to the fall and the winter and spring. But any thoughts in general? Obviously, you dealt with a very difficult decision, as all conferences did, in shutting down play, not just conference basketball tournaments, but spring sports as well. Just any overall thoughts for our fans is just how difficult this process has been to manage, and the challenge of doing what's right when we don't have a lot of information a lot of times to be able to make these decisions.
Yeah. Well, Dave, I think it's safe to say this is one of the most challenging periods, maybe in American history. I mean, we've had many, but by the end of the day, this may well rank up there. I don't think it's a stretch. Certainly, in terms of the nature of it, we've never had a pandemic before. Many industries have been hit hard, and sports absolutely has been no exception. As you know, the sports world is totally upside down. We almost had it easy in the spring because we were sort of, shut down. The pro leagues, as we know, from the machinations of the summer, are struggling to resume play in some cases, start play in others. Still have some unknowns ahead in terms of how they're going to pull that off. And in college sports, I mean, it's actually, the calendar's been on our side a bit over the last few months. Again, because a decision was made in March to sort of pull the plug for the spring. But now we have to deal with the fall. And to your point, it's a very uncertain moment. It doesn't seem like the virus certainly has improved. My personal view is that until there's a vaccine, we're going to be dealing with risks and unknowns. That's just, to me, I'm reading what everyone else is reading. And so where that puts us as a business is in a very difficult situation, because everyone wants to play. Fans want to see games, but we do have to be very mindful of the risks associated with that. I believe, again, when the vaccine happens, sports will come back. They'll come back big, and it'll be very familiar terrain for many of us. But in the meantime, as I said, I think we're just going to have to go through this bumpy stretch. As you know, in terms of the Big East, we have a health and safety working group that has now been repurposed into a COVID task force. We've got representation from every school. We've got, as you know, representation from UConn on our task force, and Dr. Casero has been very helpful. We're in the process of beginning the dealings that we're going to need to have with our presidents in the coming weeks about campus reopening plans and what that means for athletics. We're sort of focused on fall sports at the moment. We've got 6 fall sports that we sponsor in the conference: men's and women's soccer, men's and women's cross country, field hockey, and volleyball. And so that's up first, trying to make our decisions about conference play, and then, of course, our tournaments. The NCAA is right now proceeding as if the national fall championships will be played on time and in the venues chosen. They have some time there because that typically doesn't hit till later in the fall. But we do have some important decisions looming and lots of considerations to weigh. I just will note for your fans, we're hopeful that basketball season, which we have some more time to think about and plan for, can happen without disruption or with minimal disruption. I think you asked me before and I didn't answer it. Our plan right now is for a 20-game basketball schedule for men and women. That would allow everybody to play everybody home and away, which has really worked out well for us in the new Big East to have that double round robin. I think it's really helped cement rivalries, and God, in your case, what a chance that'll be for you to pick up in some cases and start anew in others. So, conference play generally starts end of December, beginning of January. So we're looking hard at that right now. Fox, to their credit, has been very flexible. At least they say they'll be flexible with us about how we have to schedule in order to make things happen. So, yeah, I don't have a sort of a firm answer for you today. We're doing our best to put together a lot of plans, but student athlete and coaching staff, support staff and fans, if we have them, their safety is paramount. So I think I would say, just in closing, everything we do is going to have to be through that prism.
Well, Val, we truly appreciate your time today. We look forward to working with you. Greatly appreciate your leadership, both at the national level as well as in the conference. And we look forward to hosting you at our first men's and women's basketball games. Hopefully, you'll be able to join us. So thanks a
Yeah.
lot, Val Ackerman, Commissioner of the Big East. We're excited to be home. Thank you.
Thanks. Go Huskies.